This is Heart Rhythm TV, and I am Julie Shea for the Advancing Allied Program. And I have the honor of interviewing the CEO of the Heart Rhythm Society, Patricia Blake. Pat, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Julie. It's great to be here. It's great to be in Boston, as a matter of fact.
Yep, my hometown.
Is it
welcome.
really?
Yep,
oh, that's wonderful.
Yep, I live and work here. So I know you became CEO of the Heart Rhythm Society back in 2019, and then kind of fast forward to 2020 when the whole world, basically came to a standstill. So how was that like for you, kind of coming on board as a new CEO, leading the Heart Rhythm Society in the midst of a pandemic?
Well, first of all, great question. And of course, the pandemic affected us in so many different ways. But one of the advantages that I had is when I came to Heart Rhythm, I had years of experience in the medical association field. Right before I came, I was working with GI endoscopists. Okay. And one of the reasons this job was very interesting to me is because there's a lot of correlations between heart rhythm providers, because internal medicine, device, heavily device, very involved with industry, maybe most importantly, very team focused. Okay. So all of those things led me to be very interested in fact, a Heart Rhythm Society, because it was a space that I felt, though I didn't know, I knew. Yeah. So that helped me. I mean, that helped the first year come on board and have some familiarity, at least, with some of the aspects and getting to know the new players. Unfortunately, a year isn't long enough to get to know the players very well. And so you're right, when the pandemic hit in 2020, I'd only been here a year, frankly, almost to the day at the time. Right. So as you know, the whole world changed. Now, I met many, many people, including you, I think probably during the pandemic, but all over Zoom. Still, we found ways to meet, as you know. And in fact, probably, when we reflect on it, I think we'll probably learn that in some ways we were more connected than if we'd met maybe just once at the annual meeting or scientific sessions or just once, but we met a lot more than that. All of us did. So I think none of us knew how to deal with the pandemic, right? I mean, it was new to all of us. One advantage I had there is that I'm very connected to the association community. Again, I've been association exec for years. Moving from Chicago, which is a very robust community, to Washington, D.C., which the second largest employer in D.C. is association folks. So I knew a lot of people in D.C. We navigated it together. We spent a lot of time, just like you did with your colleagues, a lot of time talking to each other, trying to figure out what it was we could do. And that really helped.
How you're going to pivot to make it all kind of stay glued together, right?
As much as possible. Yes, for sure.
So in your previous role as the CEO for the gastrointestinal endoscopy group, did you work with allied professionals in that group?
So I didn't work with allied, we did not have a robust allied professional group. We did have a class of membership, and there was a GI society for nurses and techs. It was a separate society. Okay. We did do a lot of programs together. We actually exhibited at their show, and they, of course, exhibited at our show. We had a lot of joint members. In fact, their members, I believe their membership was free if they were a member of SG&A, it was called, and they could be members of ASGE free. So there was that kind of give and take. But I always, in fact, one of the things I was excited about with Heart Rhythm is that I do believe when you work as a team, that's how you work in the hospital, that's how you work in practice. And so when you have two separate societies, it's much more difficult, I think, to really have that bonding. So I was really excited about that coming to HRS because I knew that allieds were part of the organization, an integral part of the organization, and a critical part of the organization. Part of the interview was all around allieds. And in fact, my CEO job before I was with ASG was the CEO for Emergency Nurses Association.
Oh yeah, I thought I had read that you had worked with the emergency nurses.
So I did have that, I had the experience of working with a nursing organization, which was fascinating. And then sort of the separate, and then HRS is a kind of the perfect combination of the two, frankly.
Nice. Yeah, well, Heart Rhythm Society has such a diversified group of allied professionals, from nurses, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, technicians, technologists, genetic specialists, which makes up close to 25% of the overall membership. And I just kind of like to get your thoughts about, our allied group. What's been your impression of them, and kind of where do you see they are now and maybe in 5 years from now, kind of the evolution of the allieds?
Well, a really good question, and in some ways you probably know more than I do about sort of the evolution of the allieds. And I do think it's a challenge. A great strength, of course, is the diversity of the group. Yeah. A challenge is the diversity of the group, because as you know better than I do, the allied folks have different needs at different levels. And so there's different educational needs, there's different networking needs, there's different kinds of experiences that would be useful. So a couple things. The very first thing I did when I came to HRS is fortunately the board let me do this, is to establish a leadership program for the allied professionals. Yeah. We also established one for women electrophysiologists, but the allied one was actually the first one. Because
the LEAP program.
LEAP program, right. And the real goal behind LEAP is networking. Because one of the things that we know is that we maybe don't develop networks as well as we could, networks that carry us through our entire life. Or certainly professional career, and which is one and the same most of the time. But part of that is that the program is a year-long program, and that's why. Because it's not we go to one session or one day and then we go our separate ways. The real crux of the program is to develop that network with allies. Interestingly enough, we have 20 slots and we had 82 applications of all different levels. Now again, you go back to, we have the advanced practice, we have techs, we have so many different groups. So I would guess as the program was sort of put on hold during the pandemic, this, in fact, they're meeting tomorrow for the first time. In person. They've been meeting as you know, right? But tomorrow they're going to meet in person. Nice. And then the program will be for the next year. I think if we find it's a successful program, then maybe we look at, should we diversify, should we stratify a little bit the program? Should we say this LEAP program this year is for this group and next year it's for that group? So I don't know. I think Julie will be looking at that and talking to the group to see what they think, what would be most useful. But I do think, we have the Allied Council. The board has talked a lot as we continue to really focus on diversity and inclusion. Our allied folks are really a part of that conversation. So I think it's going to be really important as we see more allies on committees, more allies reviewing journals. I think there's going to be a really big continued push for more leadership from our allied professionals.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Pat. I appreciate your time this afternoon. And this is Julie Shea from Heart Rhythm TV, the Advancing Allied Program.